Ho, 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 friends. Rodge here, aka the Wisco Horn Dog, and I'm back again for another Saga Thursday, your regular source for Saga, the miniatures game content. And today we are taking a look at the Northern Fury supplement, in particular the Scots faction. So we are going to take a look at the battle board, discuss some tactics as always. With me we've got the Silver Fox, Mr. John Stentz, helping me out. He is super knowledgeable about these guys, as you will see, and we're going to take a look at these tricky bastards, and we're going to dissect them. We're going to pull them apart, take a look, and then we're going to put them back together. So let's just do it. Let's get into that. Yeah, we got the Silver Fox, Mr. John Stentz, back again. How's it going, dude?
It's going good, Joe. Good to see you. Hello, Saga Thursday guys and gals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I looked in, there's analytics for YouTube, obviously, and you can go in and they can break it down by male and female, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, there's a 1% female listener base growing there.
Yeah, sounds about right. But hey, yeah, growing, right? So
if we get to 100 views in the first place, one of them should be a lady. So
nice.
That works out pretty good. But okay, you are back to talk about the Scots, and these guys are pretty cool. You put the hurt on me. Pretty good at Saga Storm with these guys.
They can kind of sneak up on you. They're pretty decent.
Yeah, I really think they're kind of like the noob killer, which we can talk about later. So yeah. I felt I was in that category. So, okay, the Scots, these guys are pretty nifty. I guess what's your background on the Scots? Have you been playing them a while?
I have, yeah. They were my first warband. I probably got 50+ games in with them over the last couple years.
Holy fuck!
So,
wow.
Yeah, I like playing them. I've been doing other things, but I like coming back to them and picking them up again because they're still pretty fun. I mean, guys in kilts. What more can you want?
Yeah, excellent, cool. Well, let's get into the faction rules, I guess, and see what's going on with these guys. So. Doesn't really look like there's that much that's special. The Warlords and Hearthguards can be mounted.
Yeah.
But if fighting on foot, the Hearthguards are spearmen, which is important.
Very important. Yeah, really important.
I'm quite sure later on. The Warriors are spearmen as well.
Yeah.
And then you can take levies with bows or javelins.
Yeah.
So the Warlord, he's not a spearman?
That's correct. He's not a spearman.
Okay.
And as a result of being not a spearman, a bunch of the abilities on the board don't apply to him.
Okay.
We'll get to it later. The funny thing is that if you mount him, the one that is running away, that applies to him great. It can be very useful.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very flavorful. It
All right,
seems.
Right. The main guy. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You guys got this?
Okay, cool. So, yeah, that is about it as far as the faction rules go. So, let's dig in. On the left-hand side, it looks pretty standard. Pretty
standard for as compared to the other first 4 boards. Because this is from the Northern Fury expansion.
Is this the second expansion, I believe?
Well, yeah, second one. First expansion.
First expansion, second batch of factions.
Yeah.
And okay, so I'm looking at the combat pool because I'm always curious. It's a little different. So you can use it for melee or shooting reaction. So it doesn't look like you're going to have much shooting anyways, but you wouldn't be able to use the combat pool to add a shooting dice if you were taking levy for whatever reason.
But specifically, you'll notice that it's about gaining defense dice. You're not gaining attack dice from the combat pool. That's kind of key. Scots is everything. Their abilities kind of revolve around defense dice.
Oh, sure shit. So you can't even get attack dice with the combat pool.
No. You have to do that in other ways, which we'll see later.
I think I know about your baloney there. Okay, cool. Well, you want to kick it off without mercy?
Sure. Without Mercy there. That is with a stag. I will say, sorry, so here's always the funny thing when you play Scots and you've got these dice with snakes, and so no one never debates that it's a snake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of debate on what is that bird creature for your uncommons. Is it a quail, which has got the little head thingy. So I personally think it's a quail. But if it's not rolling good, I call it a duck, to piss it off and maybe see if I can roll some more, because those are good ones. You like to get those quails.
Yeah.
But then the big one, of course, is the stag or the elk, which I think is what they are based on what I think they have in Scotland. Sometimes they call it a moose. I'm not sure there's any moose in Scotland.
I'm doubting the moose claim.
Yeah, and then reindeer. If you're really getting insulted by Viking players, usually they call it a reindeer, because I guess that's what they know, being from the frozen north.
The deep north, the friggin' reindeer. Okay, so we got one antler creature here.
Yes, antler. So it takes a rare die. So it's an orders reaction, happening in your opponent's orders phase. And so it says discard this die and immediately roll 3 Saga dice and perform an out-of-order orders phase using those Saga dice you just rolled. So the important thing with this is to have an empty battle board, because I think it's the fine print in the book that says, any Saga dice that are on your board count against the 3 you're rolling. So if you've got some left, you're not going to get your maximum.
So kind of like, they apply like the standard rules, kind of, to those 3. Okay, so that.
Yeah, so that applies. And then, but it is a true in orders phase. So, for instance, you roll those 3 dice, you roll up a stag. Well, then you can throw that stag into your activation pool, roll some more. If it's raining stags, then next thing you know, you've got 8 dice on your board, and your opponent's got their head in their hands going, "Oh God, this is going to be awful," because you just powered your board up again. So there's that. Probably a lot of our viewers know that with the previous version of the religious advisor priest, that was a common thing Scots would bring, and they'd bring that priest because then they could use the priest die and then they could power it up more. But the new FAQ has taken the religious advisor specifically out of being used in this without mercy, so it's still good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a good ability, but it's not really gross like it used to be.
Yeah, that sounded pretty disgusting when I think you were explaining that to me at the last Grand Melee, how that all went down.
It was still legit back then, so it was really gross.
Yeah, thankfully. I guess I didn't have to go through that. So, okay. That looks pretty decent. I guess the one thing I'm thinking about here as I look through this is, so you want your board to be empty, so you really... are you okay just rolling 3 commons with that? Can you still juice up your board pretty good? Because I know most of these are pretty defensive anyways.
Yeah. So the ideal roll, if you're only going to get 3 dice, if you're not going to get a stag, is you want to get a common, an uncommon, and then really it doesn't matter if the third is another common or another uncommon. It sort of depends, because typically what you'll do as a standard maneuver is you put 2 of them on wood and steel and 1 of them on hold ground as a bare minimum. At least that's what I usually do. Okay. But if you can get some stags rolling, you can get some more dice. All of a sudden, then you start to juice it a little more, and you get a little keeping the distance, or you get a little tireless, or some more defensive combat pool, and stuff gets a little good for you Scots. So,
okay. I think we'll kind of have to circle around back to this one maybe once we go through the abilities, because you could put the dice down, you can get exactly what you want, and you know for sure you're going to get it, versus, you don't know for sure what you're going to roll here. So I guess it kind of depends how many of those uncommon ones you need, and if you need another reindeer or stag or whatnot. So okay, cool. But it seems pretty decent if you're using all your dice on your phase. At least you're just setting one aside if you do get that rare. And I'm only, looks like there's a fair number of rares on this board, but
they are, but a lot of them pair up with the uncommons as another option.
Yeah, it looks like there's 3, so that's interesting.
Yeah,
and yeah, it looks like there's only one other one where you actually need that stag. So okay, maybe we'll circle back around to that one, and I'll get into Hold the Ground, which astute players will notice it has a green color to its description, and this is a melee die, or melee ability. Discard this die, gain 2 defense dice, 4 if the discarded die was one of them stags. And then during this melee, your unit is not limited to a number of defense dice equal to twice the number of hits taken. Okay, so the green...
That's a key.
Yeah, the green, that means it applies to the spearmen, correct?
Right.
So that'd be warriors and Hearthguard on foot.
On foot, right.
But, okay. That looks... just using uncommon for 2 defense dice is pretty good, regardless.
Right.
And then on top of that, you could ignore the cap, so you could already be sacrificing half of your attacks for defense dice, and then these ones would be bonus on top of it.
Right.
And I've seen some shenanigans. So do you use the stag if you got it, or is that a priority for you?
Not here. It's not as much a priority. It is nice if you have an extra for the 4 dice, as we'll see in a little bit, kind of how you combo these things together. It is nice, but the stag, if they're limited, then I'd say Without Mercy or Barrier of Spears is going to be a better use for that stag than here on Hold the Ground.
Unless it's raining stags.
If it's raining stags.
Okay, cool. So this looks like a pretty common one that you use.
I think pretty much every time I build my board, I've got one on here. And the biggest thing is the 2 defense dice is nice for, say, a common, but it's really taking the cap off of the defense dice. Because Scots being defensive, so much of the time you're standing there and you're taking that charge, so you're gonna go ahead and do your defensive dice allocation in step 2, and then, as we'll see later, if you do the combo, you can very well end up with your defensive dice you created, some extra ones, all your attack dice back, and no cap. So if your opponent kind of whiffs out, you still can use all your dice. So even better chance no one dies.
Yeah. So I guess just to revisit the defensive dice cap, so that comes at the end, and normally you can only roll 2 defense dice for every wound that you've suffered. So you'd be able to roll like 5 defense dice against 1 wound coming in. So you're really against those nickel and dime. If you're taking 2 or 3 hits, you're really probably not going to be losing any guys. So you're really maintaining the line. So that's pretty cool. Moving down to Give Ground. This one has some red text, so anybody can use that bad boy. This is a common an uncommon or a rare. And discard this die, roll 1 die for each model in the unit. For each die with the result higher than its armor, all enemy units involved in the melee must discard 1 attack dice. So roll 1 die for each. Okay. So is this better on warriors then? That's what I'm reading here?
It is better on warriors. It's even better on levy if you've got levy. This is also great for if your opponent's coming in, you've already got that fatigue on you, or you got 2. You know how it's pretty common when you've got the 2 fatigue that your opponent attacks you and they spend them both. They make themselves harder to hit. They make you easier to hit. Well, because your step 3 actions are going after they've decreased your armor, on warriors, this got even better. On a 4-up, you got a big group of warriors, for instance, so 8 or 10 guys. You roll 8 or 10 dice, and any 4-ups you roll, your opponent loses an attack thanks to Give Ground.
Oh yeah, yeah, that could be pretty brutal.
Yeah, yeah. It really evens the playing field if you're fighting warriors versus Hearthguard. It's good.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, you want to do counterattack?
Sure. Okay, so with counterattack, it's a uncommon, and with it you're discarding the die, you're gaining an attack die, and now you're discarding all of your defense dice that you've accumulated, however you've accumulated them, and then you're gaining 2 attack dice per defense dice discarded. So this is the big like, yes, here I come. Like you didn't, if you didn't know, like my board was full and you didn't know if I was going to go all defensive or not. Nope, defense dice are gone. We're gonna rumble.
Okay.
It's a lot of, you get a lot of attack dice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So you go. Ugh. So if you just do your base defensive, like you go in, you fight defensively, or you receive the attack, fight defensively. Basically, you're getting now that attack dice back and a bonus one on top. So it's like 50% more attacks, plus 1 extra attack on top of it. That's pretty good. 2 attacks per defense die. Ooh, nice.
I've found that actually the hardest thing about using this ability is making sure you use it in a way you don't waste a bunch of attack dice. Because a lot of times, like for instance, if you've somehow you've got warriors for say,
okay,
and say you only had 4 of them, so they only had 4 attack dice, and maybe you did defensive drops, so you got rid of 2, you got 1 defense die, you did hold the ground, you threw 2 more defense die, so now you've got 3 defense dice. So when you turn those in with the counterattack, those 3 defense dice turn into 6, plus 1 more for just counterattack, so 6, 7. It's kind of like with small units, they can't use all these extra dice because they out.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to hit that dice cap.
Hit the dice cap on the attack dice. Yeah.
Okay. So is this ability, because I know, when I played against you and JJ, there's ways that you can get a bunch of attack dice and keep your defense dice. Is this like a separate ability from that? So this doesn't really work with those other ones, or?
No, you're right. It doesn't work with them.
Okay, so this
is kind of the one, like, I use this one when I find a combat where whatever I'm fighting, like, I just need to kill it. Okay. I need to have as many attack dice as possible.
So this kind of basically forfeits all your defensive stuff just for pure attack dice.
It does.
Then there's other ways in the board to get a bunch of attacks and keep those defense dice. So this one is this is kind of the odd quail out.
Yeah, it's kind of cheap compared to the other ones, but yes, it's not as good as some of the other ones might be.
Yeah, well, for the number of attacks you're getting here, basically the caveat is you can't use it in your turn because you won't be fighting defensively. Unless you have other, you can
effectively.
Yeah, you have other ways you can get some defense dice in there, but the real bang for your buck will be the on your opponent's turn, because you won't have to use any Saga abilities to generate those defense dice. But yeah, it looks good. I can see even with Give Ground there, those 2. I mean, if they lose half of their attacks coming at you, there's no harm just to tripling your attacks.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, we got another melee ability here, Tireless.
Okay. Yep.
So this one's in red. Anybody can use that. It's another melee, and it's an uncommon as well. Discard this die. At the end of this melee, all your engaged units reduce by -1 the number of fatigue they should take. So just reading that, normally you would take 1 fatigue, so you would take no fatigue. Basically, a little caveat for the Anglo-Dane board. They didn't want to totally screw them over.
Yep. Exactly. But yeah, in an otherwise straight up fight, you're finishing the fight with no fatigue, and that's really handy when you're waiting around for what they're going to come at you in their turn. So I like Tireless. That's one I play a lot. If I've got a quail, that's a great spot to put it.
Yeah, I think that's solid. You don't want to leave your ass blown in the wind out there, and for one dice, basically canceling a fatigue.
Yeah.
And if it looks like if you throw the Warlord in there, all like side by side combat, it looks like they're both affected. So a little bony there.
Yep, little bony for that.
A little bony. Okay. Cool. Keeping the distance. You want to do this one?
Sure. With keeping the distance, it's an uncommon or a rare. So melee or shooting reaction. And with the discard of the die, your unit now counts as being behind heavy cover for the resolution of the shooting or the melee. So yeah, let's talk through this. All right, so shooting, you've bumped your armor up and you've increased your save to a 3+.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
That's pretty good. That will hopefully keep some guys alive. Or melee, you've made yourself a 4+ save. So when thinking about potentially all these defensive dice that you have as a Scottish player, now you're saving with 4s. Gosh, guys aren't dying.
Yeah,
not as much.
That's a bunch of baloney. It really makes a pretty big difference. Like, surprisingly,
sure does.
It's just one little pip, but it goes from every 3 defense dice saving a guy to every 2 defense dice saving a guy. Yeah. And if that's the case, you don't need quite as many defense dice to just save everybody. Plus, with 4s, they're so dice. You could just roll like 4 4s with 4 dice, easy.
Yeah.
Just trying to bring those lucky feelings into the dice roll, I think is a good idea.
Saga mojo. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's pretty badass. Melee counts as being behind cover. So, do you have to be attacked for that to work, or could you count as being behind heavy cover when you go in on your turn?
Yes, on your turn.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
I mean, as it is, people generally find that, like, if a Scottish player can get his infantry into heavy cover, those are guys that are really tough to root out just because they're already in the heavy cover or in a building. But here they can be standing out in the open, and you attack them, and they're like, yeah, we're in heavy cover because Scotland's rocky, so we brought our own rocks.
Oh yeah, they just empty out their pockets.
yeah. Flap their kilts around and rocks fall out.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay. So one thing, this is like this is an uncommon or a stag. So this is the 4th one in a row that requires an uncommon, or for 2 of them, I guess you could use a stag as well. So is that kind of like the hot commodity on this board?
Yeah, the quails are the hot. Like, you want them because they make this board work the best. Mm-hmm. So really, yeah, if you can make it rain birds, then you're in good shape.
Papa John wants those birds. Excellent. Okay, we'll pop down to Running Away. So this is a red font, so anybody can use it. It's another melee ability. And it is just a common. So let's see what we're getting here for a common. Discard this guy in a melee where only one of your levies or a mounted unit is engaged. Okay. This unit immediately disengages, but may move up to L for this disengagement movement. Your unit takes 2 fatigues at the end of the movement. No melee is resolved. So, okay, this one's kind of interesting. So it's basically going against how you would build your warband to start with. So I guess there's a little incentive for you to muck about with some levies and some mounted guys versus what we've seen. Or the Warlord, get that guy mounted. That'll work for him, right?
Yeah. So that's one thing that I at first when I started playing Scots, I kept the Warlord on foot, and it was fine. As we've seen, there's hardly any abilities to make him any better. Tireless is basically the ability that works the best for him. But I started putting him on a horse because in our meta there wasn't a lot of shooting, so he wasn't more at risk for being on the horse.
Yeah.
And so I found, though, then if I got myself in a pickle and in a bunch of games playing guys, like I still remember this epic game with one of our local guys, Kevin Bruins, and he's just chasing my warlord down. He's on a horse, and I just kept playing Runaway. I just kept getting out of combats that he would have died in because he just didn't have the juice to stay alive. So that's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's a nice little ace in the hole. I mean, you're always going to have a common die. So, when turns 3, 4, 5 and up, when you're kind of closing in and you just never know for sure, how the combats are going to go, and you're at risk of multiple activations getting into your warlord. Yeah, it's definitely a decent.
Or here's the other one. So you've done your turn, and you had Without Mercy, where you do that out of orders phase. You see your warlord's hanging out there. It's got its ass in the wind. Like, yeah, I'll be putting one of these common dice over here on Running Away because I got to get out of here.
Okay, yeah, so for sure you're going to get that a common dice, obviously. Decent.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever tried any shenanigans with levies? I mean, a 12-inch move is pretty decent for a foot unit.
Yeah. I've played levies a lot, and I've found that it seems to be they mostly stand around because, I mean, look at where you want all these uncommons. That's what activates your levy, right?
Oh, so shit, yeah.
It's just like, oh man, I don't have that many extra uncommons to, especially for guys with javelins. I mean, maybe bows a little better, but I just found that most of the time my warband had moved up to fight, and my levy are still standing back there like Hercules, just cheering them on. So, so then I stopped taking levy because they just stood around, and they're great if you're up against Yams because of here's 3 guys. All right, here's 3 levy, but I don't know. I think the levy fell out of fashion for the Scots myself.
No, yeah, you raise a good point. Just with the quail being the best dice to activate them, we just discussed how badly you need those to power up the rest of your Scottish juices. So that makes sense. Yeah.
I thought that was what whiskey was.
Some Scottish whiskey.
Yes.
Excellent. Once again, we are going to call it right there. This is going way too long for a YouTube video, so we are breaking this down into 2 parts. Next week, we will be back with part 2 of the Scots review. If you like what you're seeing so far, if you have anything to add to the discussion, why don't you drop me a line below? Otherwise, favorite this shit as always. Share with the bud. I think of any of these tactic videos, I think definitely this is one of the ones you want to share with a friend, because you don't want to roll up against these Scots not knowing exactly what they can do. So spread that word and become a hobby horn dog today.
Saga!